Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Carter Smith.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Would you come up here, Carter, if you don't mind? We want to give you the lapel pin. That's the official pin for the city of Hernando. You keep the box. Great job. Thank you for doing that. Alderman Harris, would you lead us in the invocation?
Dear Lord, we come to give you thanks for your many blessings. We thank you, Lord, for this day you've given us. We thank you, Lord, for your presence in our daily lives and your presence here in our community. We ask for your presence here tonight, Lord, as we conduct business for the city, and just pray that you lead us and that all that we do is done in a way that's pleasing to you. We ask you, Lord, to keep our military, our police, fire, and first responders all safe. We ask you to forgive us of our sins, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Can I have a motion to approve the docket of claim numbers listed on your agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting dated February 21st, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 7 is the consent agenda. Can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Andrew, I think you're watching it on the video and it's feeding back.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And by the way, just so everybody knows, Alderman Miller is in attendance. He has a new knee, so he's zooming in from home. Next is item 8, the personnel docket. Can I have a motion on that item?
Motion to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Personnel docket passes. Can I have a motion to approve the donation docket?
Motion to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 11, or item 10. We pulled this one out from the regular donations docket. This is the approval to accept a donation of professional services in the amount of $11,861.77 from AERC Architectural for their continuing work on the animal shelter building. And I just want to make sure everybody understands how much they have given to the city. It's a big deal. They continue to oversee the construction, and they send us these invoices marked paid in full as a donation. So I do need a motion to accept that donation.
Motion to accept.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Can I have a motion on item 11 to approve the proclamation honoring the late Sharon Stafford Walker?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 12. Austin, if you would come up and lead us on the PL 1693 Delta Landing PUD request.
All right, project number PL 1693 is a request for a zoning map amendment for the Delta Landing PUD. This is located on the west side of Mackinville Road, south of Pleasant Hill in Section 31, Township 2, Range 7. And Bob Dahlhoff is here tonight on behalf of the owner of the property with Dahlhoff Thomas Design. A little background on the site is it was previously rezoned to the Brighton Village PUD and was approved December 18th, 2007, which is a mixed-use proposal on 251 acres. This is 131 acres of residential, 20.5 acres of commercial, and 72.5 acres of amenities and common open space. And we did previously provide an original text for this, but I'll go over the brief differences here in just a minute of the differences of the previous plan and the new plan. At the last meeting, the current request was tabled to give the applicant an opportunity to meet with some of the neighbors and revise the proposal accordingly, and he's done so. And so I'll start with the original proposal and go through the iterations we've had to get to this point tonight. The current request is on the same 251-acre parcel as a previous Brighton Village. The development pattern of the development is similar, but it includes a couple of primary changes. The first of which was the removal of the townhome and age-restricted multifamily area. The internal streets have been revised to account for an updated traffic pattern and to more easily get around within the development, and they did present a residential pattern book. They did originally present lot sizes from 6,000 to 12,000 square foot, and originally they did not propose a minimum home size change. The overall density of the plan was 3.2 acres, dwelling units per acre, roughly 20% common open space, and includes a potential campus for a YMCA. The building bulk regulations are included in the plan text, and commercial uses are listed, and bulk requirements for that area as well. Alternative right-of-ways are presented, meaning utilities and road widths vary slightly from our traditional requirements, but this has been reviewed by the city engineer. And the parking requirements are varied slightly, and that's listed on page 14 of the staff report. So since the original proposal that was presented to the Planning Commission was originally tabled and then came back the next month with an update of a few items that the public voiced their concern on. And so based on the original proposal, what they came back with was an updated survey that clarified the encroachment onto the cemetery, which was confirmed to not be encroaching whatsoever. They did originally propose to eliminate the connection to Frony, which is updated in the staff report. And then they added language about the sewer connection to Dogwood Hollow to really clarify the city's role and the developer's role and when and how that would happen. And that text is listed in your staff report as well. At our request, they did add a traffic circle to the east-west street on the northern boundary to help slow traffic from that potential drag strip on the northern boundary. And then they did update the minimum home square footages, 200 square feet for each section. So C1 went from 1,600 to 1,800. C2 and C3 went from 18 to 2,000. And area C4 went from 2,000 to 2,200. That was the proposal that went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did recommend denial. And so with that denial, that does trigger a majority need from the board for passage. Since that denial, the developers re-engaged with the surrounding property owners, and it's come up with a second iteration of a plan that is also included in your staff report behind the original proposal, and that's on this paper here. And the applicant will speak more on this, but what they're proposing is to eliminate the connection to Dogwood Hollow, to change all the lots on the northern boundary line to 20,000 square foot lots, which is roughly half an acre. And the greenway is proposed on the southern boundary to be paved. The applicant did provide a traffic study that's in your staff report provided by Civil Link. And the result of this traffic study, which they'll get into more detail here in a second, was that at the point a traffic signal is warranted, that the developers offered to pay for it. And so that's another concession the developers offered from the original proposal. As all zoning cases go, the three applicable criteria for our discussion is how this proposed amendment conforms to the general development plan, why this existing zoning district classification is either inappropriate or improper, and what changes, either economic, physical, or social, have occurred in the area that were not anticipated by the general development plan and have substantially altered the basic character of the neighborhood. And on the second page of the staff report, the applicant has provided answers to each of those. This development does have access and will connect to public water and sanitary sewer services. And if approved, this preliminary text will serve as the preliminary plat approval. And so what that means is that what you see in front of you serves as a preliminary plat. The next process would be to submit engineering drawings. And to clarify a little bit what that would be, what that would entail, a grading permit is required through our department to be approved by MDEQ. And a question has come up of how the tree ordinance applies, and we implement our tree ordinance through our grading permit. And so the tree ordinance, in short, what it says is you mitigate either through in lieu fund or you replant trees of a certain caliber size. And that's based off either a tree survey or an aerial photography survey. And so the applicant can choose either way he wants to do it, but we do require either mitigation for trees or a payment in lieu to our tree fund. And that's implemented through our DEQ-approved grading permit. As I mentioned, this did go to the Planning Commission at the 214 meeting, and it did get recommended for denial to you tonight. And as I mentioned, that's a supermajority vote is needed now for approval for the Board of Aldermen. And so to sum it up, the overall density of the previous plan and the new plan still remains at 3.2 dwelling units per acre overall, which does include the common open space. The lot sizes range from 6,000 to 20,000 square feet, as shown on the northern boundary line of the new proposal that's been presented tonight. And it removes the townhome and age-restricted multifamily units, and it did revise the traffic, the internal traffic patterns. I did include proposed motions to approve or deny and table in your staff report. And we do have a presentation from the applicant and some from the public tonight. And I did include the approval or denial language criteria in the zoning ordinance for a PUD. We did include the traffic impact study and then the original plan text from Brighton Village. I'm available if you have any questions, and the applicant's here as well.
Are there any questions for Austin before the applicant comes forward?
I do have one question if nobody else does.
Yes, sir.
Austin, can you speak just a little bit about Brighton Village, and if we deny this tonight, and what can be developed there that's already approved?
Yes, sir. So the original text was approved in December of 2007, and that has come up in discussions about the board's power to revert zoning. I can confirm we haven't found anything that the board did since 2007 to change that original zoning. So after confirming with the city attorney that zoning is still valid for Brighton Village. The original plan text, to answer your question, included a mixed-use development, but single-family lots, condominium units, townhomes, and multifamily against the interstate.
What was the dwelling units there per acre?
The dwelling units per acre were 3.2 overall, and that cycled in the multifamily units, common open space, and everything. So the overall density was 3.2, which is what the current plan is as well.
That cut all the roads through, or a lot of those roads on the north?
The previous plan had a connection to Brody, and that was it. And so that echoes kind of similarly what the new plan has. And I will note that this plan does stub streets to the two empty parcels going to the north, but the only full connection to a road would be to Brody, as shown in their new alternative.
Did that answer your question? Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Dahlhoff, would you like to make a short presentation?
Sure. I can make it short, but I'll preference it. We're saying I have about 41 slides, so I'm going to maybe click through them fast, or either we can skip some, since
And then to advance, you just hit that there.
things set up there. I'll go ahead and. Yeah, she's going to hand out a copy of this so that y'all
Is
can
this
kind
what
of.
she emailed earlier?
I'm sorry?
Was that what she emailed the other day?
No, this is our.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's what you're expecting.
Okay, thanks. I thought that since the screen is kind of small, it's hard to follow in text and things, maybe hand it out also would be easier to follow. I want to number one, first of all, I want to thank you all tonight for your consideration, your time and your consideration for the Delta Landing plan development. It is a modification of the existing PD that's already been approved. I'll be honest with you, I went through it, I looked at it, and you might say I analyzed it, and I found a lot of things that I felt like were not up to par. Circulation, pedestrian circulation, interconnectivity, just a tremendous amount of little details that make a great place to live and make it ingress and egress easy for everyone. But also, as the mayor said, I'm Bob Delhoff. I'm the founding principal of Delhoff Thomas Design Studio in Memphis, 6465 North Quail Hollow Road. Also here, of course, is the developers, Jerry and Johnny. Nick Cruden was going to be here to talk about the traffic. He got a call from him. He's got a stomach virus, so I don't want him here. None of us want him here, I don't believe. But anyway, I think he was going to send somebody else for any engineering questions anyone might have. So also here with me is Michelle Yee, and I believe that Justin Inskeep may also be here with YMCA just in case anybody had any questions for him. I'll have to say this, a little bit of a preamble before the presentation. After 50 years of being a land planner in this area, and that went by really fast, but anyway, I have touched a lot of property, total in planning, over 100,000 acres. 25,000 acres of it was in DeSoto County of planning, and which is being developed all over the place. So it's not that I'm not familiar with this area. I would actually, to be honest with you, I was just waiting for the opportunity that I-269 came in, and it all kind of it started forming. The parcel started forming itself. With that, I'll say this, that the owner of the property is very particular about what happens to the property. They want something good to happen for Hernando. Her phone is rung off the hook for possibilities of developments that I think she feels and I feel is probably not appropriate. And so she wants something good to happen, so she's certainly in support of this development. Being the owner of that property, they also gave the right-of-way for McInville Road to go through their property without any compensation. And I know that y'all already know the change in the area is tremendous changes. You have all the new school, you have the Madison Lakes, you have the new McInville Road, you have the new high school now, you have all the athletic stuff that's happening on Green Teen Road. So a tremendous amount of things are happening. I've been involved in everything except the Green Tea Road Athletic Complex. The interchange, everything to help make all this happen. So in this area for many years now, including Madison Lakes and McInville Road, even the negotiations with the high school too. So I've been involved in there for a long time, just as a preamble, so you'll know. And as Austin said, there is an approved plan on the property, and but I just felt like it needed to be better. I know how the city feels on the stance on townhomes or rental units and apartments, and so we were asked to take those out. We did. So we modified those with single-family homes. We replaced those with single-family homes. I'm going to see if I can work this thing. First slide. See, as I said, it's kind of little, but you can see it in your book, I think. The site analysis. It's 200, like as Austin says, 250 acres. It's a little deceiving if you go by the site, you don't realize it, but there's 30 foot of grade change from north to south on that piece of property. That's kind of like a 3-story building. So there's a lot of grade change there. Also, from the north coming onto this piece of property, there's 7 to 8 different points of drainage coming into this piece of property that needs to be addressed, picked up and addressed also. So we know that it's coming in from the north, and then we have Hurricane Creek along our south boundary, and of course you can see on your plan. Oops, it doesn't work. Never mind. Over in the corner, the high school location on your exhibit there, and in front of this development, the front door of this development, is their athletic complex, part of their campus. And then you can see their drives are up north of that. Their ingress and egress drives. The next exhibit you see is actually a copy of the approved, maybe a little larger scale than you have in front of you, the approved plan in '07. As I went through it, like I said, I had a lot of concerns. I've added roads. The block links, to give you an idea, are way too long, and we needed more interaction. What we want to do is disperse that traffic. We don't want it all to end up at the same stop sign, so to speak. So we've changed all that. The boulevard actually stopped at the roundabout on that original plan. We continued all the way around to our proposed roundabout, which I'll show you also. And then you can see all the townhouses on the west end, and then in the purple up at the front door were apartments for seniors. And I can tell you, as many senior developments as we've done, which is an awful lot of them, seniors don't live in small apartment buildings like that. They just don't do it, because they require elevators and a lot of other things. It just doesn't happen. It's more of a big type facility that they live in. We just finished a $450 million one in Collierville. So we've been around a lot on senior activities. But anyway, and we've also, as far as the condominiums along the lake, along Hurricane Creek, we've dropped a few of those also, just because it makes it work better. And if you go to your next exhibit, please, outlined in red are the areas that the major changes were made, that we made to the plan. Basically, as you can see, kind of the heart of it stays the same, but except we've added some pedestrian connections and some road tie-ins that needed to happen, just needed to happen. And I'll tell you, to me, talking about roads and circulation, reality is this approved plan that you had really only had one front door, and that's the North Boulevard Road. The one to the south is through a parking lot, as you can see. So circulation-wise, it didn't work. We went back through and kind of jumped around a little bit on traffic. We did a traffic impact of this project just to see if it would stand alone with the entrances that we had, and it would. And then after that, the Planning Commission asked us, the virtual Planning Commission meeting asked us if we'd include the school traffic, and we did. That's how we've come up with, at some point, this development will possibly need a traffic signal, but not for a while. If you'll go to the next slide, which is this is the revised plan that was actually presented to the Planning Commission at the last meeting. This is not the current plan, but I just kind of give you the history as we've gone through this. I can tell you we have, unfortunately, we've probably cut down a lot of trees, printing paper on these things, but we've done so many of them on this project. But as you can see, it had the tie-ins to the north, which we'll show you in the other slides that we have deleted. And then we also had taken off of the connection we had to it. From the property, it's hard to mark on that, but the front of the property is really the retail area. The area in orange in the heart, I'm calling that the village core. That's the one that's retail down in lofts above. That's kind of the center part of the village, the activity part. And then on purple, just to the south of that, is the location of the 10 acres being donated for the YMCA site, and the developer is making that as a pad ready, bringing utilities and everything to it. So it is ready, it would be ready to go. Office buildings, and I'll say, then there's a traffic circle, and we'll get into more detail. The traffic circle itself, we have a clock tower and a bell tower to go in that. May end up, final design may have the name of the development on it if we get to that point on this development. Right across to the west of that traffic circle, you see a green area. That's what I'm calling Village Park. There's a park area there. We'll have a gazebo in there, and the ochre color, orange color there is a senior age-restricted housing, 55 and above. And those houses actually face that park and face that village center. So it puts eyes on the street. It makes it kind of an activity area for the residents, to say the least. You'll also see there is, if you look at your plan, you'll see if you go all the way back to McInville Road, we're putting a trailhead in for the greenway. Again, the other plan, the original plan, doesn't have the greenway. It has its own private green space, that's it. This is the greenway. The developer is willing to donate about 17 acres for that. And at the request of administration and the lack of funds that MPO will have for Hernando in the next numerous years, we've agreed to go ahead and pave that in phases with a 10-foot asphalt path. And whenever MPO money does come available, you can use it for something else, I guess you might say. So, the YMCA and a few other little things, the developer itself is embedded in this thing at $3.5 million basically for improvements for the county. Tremendous amount of money out of pocket for the Greenway and for the YMCA site. So there's a lot happening there. As you go on through the development, Each one of those colors, as you can see on the legend, represents different size lots. And this plan, again, this is the plan with the last plan with the Planning Commission. We'll get to the other one in just a second. And instead of having one long lake, as the original plan has, which nobody can get across, we've put it into three pockets, and so we have the trailhead at McInville Road. Then we have in the let's just say the village center area by the YMCA. There's another access point to the Greenway. Then there's one up on the other side of the sports field, one between the condos, and one at the other end of the condos, and one at the other end at the far east end of the neighborhood to get to that asphalt trail. If you'll flip to page 5, please, the next one. This is just a comparison chart for you. And you can see the approved plan, and you can see ours, the amended plan, the areas that we have reduced density, items that we have removed from the plan, the YMCA site on its 10 acres. And so you can see we still have the same, actually, we've worked it so that we have the same overall density and same residential net density there, so as the original plan had. The next slide, I thought it was very interesting. It's the estimated tax generation for the development. And keep in mind, this doesn't include sales tax. This is only property tax. So this number is a little bit low. And I will say this, as years go by, this number will still rise, even on property tax, I would imagine. But it's an amazing amount of money. Total estimated residential tax, just the residential tax is $1.491 million, and the commercial is $904,000 and a little change over that. A lot of money. So projected tax $2.395 million. And estimated city tax for Hernando is $703,000, county tax $779,000, and school tax $948,000. Lots, it can generate lots of money, tremendous amount of money. And I would think that the city itself, the $700,000 plus the sales tax and all, that's a nice. You could do a lot with that kind of money for sure, whether it's paved roads or whatever it might be. So it's. I knew it was going to be a lot, but also I wanted to get it writing in front of y'all. And I will say this: we did work tax assessor's office on this, and it's been checked. So I believe it's right. It's right on. Excuse me. The next page in your book is the developer's gifts and concessions. And I hate to get wordy on this. That's the reason I said I'll try to talk fast because it's a lot of slides. The ones in red are highlighted, and we addressed them on the right-hand side. Sanitary sewer extension, which Austin just talked about, the Hernando Greenway, which I just talked about, and the YMCA site, which I also just talked about. So the developer has offered to extend, even though he's going to have to extend that sewer cross-country before development ever happens in those areas, to get those 2 lagoons offline that the state's basically, I guess, hounding you for, that need to be done, that are required to be done. And I've got an exhibit that'll show that also. The developer has offered to gift approximately 17 acres of land section for the Green Hill and Trailhead along Hurricane Creek. Developer has also offered to install the 1 mile, actually a little over a mile of paved greenway trail, 10-foot wide asphalt in phases, which is typically the responsibility of the city with MPO funds. But it's not going to be available for quite a few years, it seems to, for this project, so the developer said he would go ahead and do it. So that's, again, a real nice shot in the arm, I would say, for the city. Developer is gifting 10 acres to the YMCA. Developers also, as I said, is going to make it site ready, bring utilities to it and all. The second page, interior boulevard, removed unwanted unit types, greenway connections, and traffic signal. Developers extended and widened the boulevard. It was amazing to me, to be honest with you, the width of the lanes on the roads in the approved development. My opinion, were too small. They were just way too small. And as you can see, and even on the alleys, service drives, I'd rather call them service drives. I've lived on one for many, many years, different places, designed thousands of them, of homes that have those. They were only 16 foot wide. So if 2 cars or 2 pickup trucks can't even pass each other leaving their house. So we enlarged those to 20 foot, which is a standard for Germantown, Colleyville, everywhere else is 20 foot. So you pass. The other thing that we've done is there, behind every house, there's also 2 extra parking spaces. So every house in the backyard can park 4 cars. And the streets are wide enough that you can park a car on the street now and pass. The entrance to the boulevard on that original plan, when you came into that traffic circle and that boulevard that goes up to the 5-acre park that we kept with a playground, those 2 lanes are only 12, on that approved plan, are only 12 feet wide from curb to curb. You can't park in front and get an emergency vehicle or any other vehicle by that car. So we've widened those also, so that works. There's a lot of things like that that just needed to happen. And we also, of course, we removed the 175 townhomes out of the development at the Greenway, and we added all those connection points as I had mentioned. Developer, based on finding the traffic impact study, has agreed to pay for further warrant studies at 50%, 75%, 100% of the development completion. If warranted, the developer is offered to pay for a traffic signal to be installed at one of the McInville Road connections. So I think that's a big deal. Not only will it serve this development, it also will help the school tremendously. And I know there's a traffic signal and it works at Pleasant Hill and McInville also. If you go to the next page, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Fronty Drive connection, we did away with that. We added additional roundabout. We upped the minimum home square footage. We have, as far as the cemetery goes, we have had crews out there 3 times now inspecting that to make sure there's not graves on the site, and they're not. And you'll see in a minute, there's a drawing on that when we get back to it. We also have said that we would fence off that area to make sure construction traffic stays away from that cemetery area, and protect that. Then alternative concept plan and the northern buffer replanting and boundary fencing standards. These, we've had numerous work sessions. On the 23rd, we had a work session with Alderman Piper. As a concession, the developer, we just tried to brainstorm and figure out what we could do to make it a little bit better and see if we can ease some of our neighbors' fears and concerns. We offered to take a look at alternative concept option, converting the 12,000 square foot lots to 20,000 square foot lots, half-acre lots, and we have, which we'll get to. And those would be a minimum of 2,400 heated square feet also, which did get, and then we've removed the Dogwood Hollow connection. At the work session with the neighbors that we had, the last one we had, developers offered to plant additional trees and large evergreen shrubs to fill voids within the northern buffer, that 50-foot wide buffer. If there's any site, if you want any site through there. We've also, well, I'll get that in just a second. If the dogwood connection is removed from the plan, the developer is offered to plant additional trees and large evergreen shrubs in northern buffer where the sewer has to be connected into, because you're going to lose some trees there from an easement that we had to actually construct that sewer line. So we're going to replant that area, except for the easement. Obviously, we can't. We won't be allowed to do that. I don't imagine. And then number 15 was, after the work session with the neighbors, the developers offered to put a requirement on the PD for rear yard wood privacy fencing along that north development boundary line to be consistent in style, height, and material. So we don't have a hodgepodge of fences all down through there. So it's a
Is that a wooden fence with a cap on it?
Yeah, yes, sir. So on that north line, there'll be consistent fence there. Each homeowner, that's what would be required for each homeowner to put them to fence their yard in with. The next one is our inspiration images that we've used. Some of this is our developments, but these things that we use, it's kind of the character that we want this place to be. We're trying to create a place, not another subdivision. We want a place where people can come say, well, come see where I live. And then you see the next one. And actually, the one on the left-hand corner is great for where the condos are. It really relates very well to the lakes and all. The parks, the greenway. The next one gives you an idea of potential type of really, in my feeling, real substantial condominiums, brick and mortar. Then on the next page, you'll see a little bit of the commercial. You see Bancorp South. You'll see some shops. Then some of this was taken in Germantown, where you see the word C, which is Eyeglass Place. But this is the kind of environment we're trying to create here, or that we want to create here, versus what's already been approved for this piece of property. The next one is an exhibit of the clock tower within that large roundabout. And then in the background, you can see the gazebo where that park is, the village park. And then that senior housing is actually senior homes, the age-restricted homes is looking into that. The next slide you'll see is the bell tower just farther back. We're on the sidewalk now of the retail area, looking into it. The next slide, you're farther back in the retail area, in a plaza area. And over in your left-hand corner, you're starting to get a glimpse of where the YMCA would be located, if it happens. The next slide is on the sidewalk, retail down, lofts up, and then you see the glass is the YMCA in the background on that side street. And that is a full-service street connection out. It's not a parking lot drive out. So need to move traffic. Then the next slide is, currently is their front elevation of the YMCA building. My feeling is it'd be a great amenity to have in a neighborhood like this with kids and everything it has to offer. I was amazed after hearing all about this more than once, the YMCA, what it brings to the community, what it offers in amenities, daycare, everything. So the outline plan, next slide, in your book would be the outline plan. Basically what it does, it just kind of divides these areas up into actually the product of each one of these. For instance, area A2 is really that central village I was talking to you about. That's the retail down and the lofts above. Around that then is the retail, the YB is the age-restricted area. The C are the 7,200 and the C4s are the 12,000 square foot lots, and then down on the south are the condominiums. Those are fee simple condominiums, they're ownership. They're not rental, they're ownership units. The next one, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to stop. I'm just kind of, like I said, I've got a lot of slides I was going through, and didn't want to take too much of your time. Is the street type plan, and this is where we really got into it. If you was to take this plan and look back and forth at the original plan, you would see a difference in the street connections. You'd see shorter block lengths. Along the boulevard area, all the way through here, there's no driveways entering that road. They're all rear access homes. Everywhere you see that orange line, that represents a service drive. Those are rear-loaded units. So you don't have driveways coming out on the sidewalks with kids trying to ride bicycles or whatever it might be. So there's no interruptions. It's a peaceful place. And then of course, the roundabout to the north to slow that traffic down on that straightaway there. Then the next one is the green space plan with 20% green space. Actually, it's almost getting close to 60 acres of it. And you can see the circles that this represents a 5-minute walk. A 5-minute walk can just about get you anywhere in here. From end to end is about a 10-minute walk, but everybody has access to green space. The next slide, it's a preliminary phasing plan. I'll say this, as you can tell, the phases are really large. We'll probably subdivide those phases. It may give you, for instance, on phase 4, it may be a 4A and a 4B. Divide that one in half. It's just a lot to put on the market at one time. So it's going to have to, we're going to have to we'll have to dissect those some as we go through it. But I think most important about this is that you can see the route of that sewer that has to happen cross-country to get up to that road that developers willing to put in, get those offline, those lagoons in orange. As far as the retail goes, based on retail demand, that note says on that, excuse me, some things are going to happen prior to the 100 homes, just because of for services that they need, not only them but the surrounding area also. But there's no way, this retail will develop out prior to these homes. It won't survive. You can't do that. The retail developers won't come until there's no house time. So, not to take things so much out of sequence, but when there's a need, there's a need.
So you're saying that they're gonna develop the homes first, is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
You're saying they're gonna develop the homes before they do the retail? Is that what you said?
Some of the retail, I mean, it might be one or two things, coffee shop, different things might happen, but nothing major. The major stuff won't happen until there's enough house stock to support it. So reality is we may be at 100, maybe at 125 before anything significant happens in retail. We don't know. It's all market driven, as we all know. Then I kind of close this first part of this presentation out back to the same master plan again. Then I would like to go and address some of the neighbors' areas' concerns that you have in front of you also. Use of existing roads. I will say this, we agree that the public roads to the north are in substandard condition. The city has Dogwood Hollow Drive on its paving schedule, I believe, for this coming year. Taxes generated by Delta Landa will provide future infrastructure repairs and upgrades to adjacent neighborhoods as well as the entire city of Hernando. Delta Landing does not need to connect to the north. That's the reason we ran the two different traffic scenarios, just to make sure. But I will say this, being a planner for over 50 years, I understand the staff's reason for interconnectivity, health, safety, welfare, no doubt about it. And not only that, it also gives people to the north an opportunity to get into this village center without going all the way around that way. But we're willing to do whatever the board sees fit. But all the generated site traffic is able to be accommodated by the connections to McInville Road after a traffic study and with a traffic signal at some point in the future as recommended traffic study. However, the city requires public road connections for public safety. That's the reason we've connected to those roads. The next exhibit kind of gives you an overview of those existing roads. To the north, still this is that old plan, so as far as street connections, there'd be one less here at Dogwood Hollow. But it also shows you the school campus across the street. And I think to me, and I would assume y'all the same way, I know we have a plan in place, approved plan in place, but to put a better plan in place, to me, just looking at this, it feels good. It feels right.
Forgot where we're at, we gotta start over.
If you'll take it right there. Right, there we go. Adjacent neighbors, major areas of concern. We tried to address all of those in a positive way. Use of existing roads, and we did this traffic study dated on the 28th, prepared by Civil Link. Again, conclusion and recommendations. The proposed development will increase demand minimally on the adjacent roadways and intersections. The level of service for the roadway network is a level of service C or better for the intersections of development site for the 2023 year as well as the 2033 year. Adding this development would create a slight increase in delay per vehicle, but overall well within the acceptable parameters of traffic delay. And then I'm just I guess you might say the next paragraph is exactly what we talked about. We would do then
Talk so long you made the battery go dead.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Where we talked about going back and doing traffic warrant studies to see when actual light is warranted. We do not want the residents who live in this development to have a hard time getting in and out. They won't want to live here. It's got to be convenient for everyone in and out. Ingress, egress is so important. I don't care what you do as far as development goes. Next page, please. The cemetery, again, as I said, we've been out there 3 times. No evidence of cemetery or grave sites have been found on this property. The approved plan development does not, oh, that didn't work. There we go. The approval of the plan development does not give anyone permission to disturb any grave sites, and if in the future any evidence is found on this site in the future, then the developer will take that property and deed it to the cemetery, to the church. So, that should be theirs. Delta Land will restrict public access to the cemetery compared to current open conditions. Development boundary near the cemetery will be lined with rear lot fencing at full build-up, preventing pedestrian or vehicle access. The developer is also agreeable to installing a temporary cyclone fencing along the site boundary near the cemetery to further protect the build-out. And the next exhibit, you can see where the closest graves are to the property line right now. Closest one's 51 feet. And then the next page was environmental impact. I won't read through all these for you. I think y'all already know most of these. Developer was going to not going to, he has to comply with the City of Hernando and State of Mississippi development requirements, discharge of water, MDEQ and FEMA and all the other permits, but we can't get any of those permits till we start making submittals to them. Historical aerials from 1985. I thought this was really interesting, and I know y'all have this in one of the documents that we sent to y'all. Historical areas from 1985 to current day reveal that there have not been much of any natural forest on this piece of property. In fact, if you go back, you'll see there's just scattered trees. If you go back on your Google Earth, you'll see scattered trees only on the property line, period, on the fence line. And as farming kind of changed, growth kind of started happening. But the growth that's out there, or the newer growth that's out there, I should say, that's not on the fence line, is saplings for the most part. And then really, it didn't start growing until after 2010. Those started coming up. Housing density, landscape buffers, design standards, access and green space amenities, and infrastructure improvements such as the sewer extensions as proposed by Delta Landing PD are all ways to help transition between new and existing neighborhoods of different densities. The lots along Dogwood Hollow Drive are zoned R30, although some of those actually measure 25,000 square feet instead of 30,000. But anyway, not a problem. But we analyzed the area. That's what we did. We have come up with an option to locate 20,000 square foot along the northern boundary adjacent to the existing residential lots. We did that. And then if you go back to the next slide, adjacent neighbors, major areas of concern, proposed density is comparable and in some cases lower than the 2007 approved plan. You can see density is a little tricky thing. It's based on acreage, and when you tighten down acreages, your density goes higher, obviously. And so that's why it makes that area with the retail and lofts above seem dense. But if you took that over all that 30-some-odd acres of that retail, then then it drops down to 3 units to the acre, basically. So and you can see even on the if you go down the chart where the 55 age restricted area is, there was 57 homes. We have 74 homes now for age restricted housing. Still 3.2 units to the acre. Next is the rental property. Although this sounds easy in theory, we believe that this is a legal issue and it can bring discrimination and individual property rights lawsuits. If the city passes an ordinance on this so that the city is taking the legal responsibility of making this requirement, the developers have to comply. But I agree, it definitely is. Adjacent neighbors, major areas of concern, PUD requirements. And as you can read through this, and I will skip the first paragraph, but what I think what really the meat is the letter from the attorney, Mr. Sappenfield, saying that PD is still intact, which Austin said it is also. So the next exhibit that you see is the modified exhibit, and you can see there that how the lots changed along that north line. It started out at 26 lots. Now it's only 17 homes, and those lots are about 150, 160 feet wide, so that they're elongated in there, and then the road connection to Dogwood, as you can see, also has been deleted. These are some concessions that we came up in our meeting, and we went back to the drawing board, tried them out, and then made it work. Developers, gifts, and concessions, sanitary sewer extension. I won't go back all the way through this. The Hernando Greenway, the YMCA site. Then we went in also. Next page on that would be the interior boulevard. We changed that and made it where it's actually functional and can actually move traffic. We also removed the unwanted unit types, which was 175 multifamily units. We added the greenway connections so people have access to that greenway. I did notice in the planning, in the conference room, in the planning office, that actually the trailhead is actually on the other side, indicated on the other side of the creek, but we were willing to do this, put it on this side. So, and also the other thing is the traffic signal, which we agreed to do. Next page, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I think I just went through all those with you. I won't be redundant with that. 13, 14, and 15. We just did that too. If that's okay, I'll skip that, and then you close out. Basically, you know, we're the same density. It's basically almost the same plan. It's just a better plan. It's, to me, that's again that's a 2007 plan. We need to be planning for today and the future, not for the past. So that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we are doing, are proposing to do, to carry this into the future. Not only that, to me, I feel like it sets a benchmark for the area for development. I know that the property owner has been approached by numerous people for all kinds of uses, And again, as I said, she does not want that to happen. She would rather be something like this and raise the value and lifestyle in the city of Hernando. So, one thing I didn't mention, I want to show you in a second. In the retail area, if you'll go back a few pages, I'm sorry, to the site plan, you'll see in the retail area, in the top, on the west end of the retail area, we've actually putting a mini storage in there. And I'll show you an example of what we're talking about. It's not like anything you have in this town, that I've seen in this town, I'll put that away, unless you've got a kid really well. And I will say this, the one that I took a photo of is one door down from Town Hall in Collierwood. And that's what we're proposing. It's not something that, in fact, you probably wouldn't even see it in the street or anything, because we're going to have to sit back. Would you flip to the next slide, to the mini storage one? There it is. That actually is one door down from Town Hall, the new Town Hall in Collierwood. All brick, it's brick wall all the way around. And on our exhibit, what happens is, at the gates where you see into this development, you won't see the development because we have a building moved over in the front of that gate. So actually what you see is another brick building. So you don't even know it's a mini storage or storage. But people in this, there'll be over 2,000 people living here at some point. They've got to have places for boats or forerunners or wave runners or whatever, and storage of things. So we think it's we feel like it's an important piece of this puzzle of planning of this development for them. So that is in there, and I'm hoping that this image helps give you a little bit of comfort that it is quality and it's not something that you see that they're throwing up all over town, different places. So it is very, very expensive facility and brings in a lot of tax dollars. I went through this kind of fast, but I knew y'all had everything in front of you, and you may have already seen a lot of it anyway, because I know we've been feeding y'all information. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them or anything you want to discuss. Otherwise, I'll let the neighbors speak.
So I know you mentioned this at one point, but I wanted to make sure. So the 20,000 square foot lots are a minimum 2,400 square.
Minimum 2,400 heated.
Okay. I know we've said it, but I just didn't see it anywhere
It's
in here.
It's in the new book.
Okay.
It's in the book.
Okay.
And the revised book has been submitted.
And then how many lots did that reduce the northern boundary by? I know you mentioned that.
It takes away 9 lots.
Okay.
9 or 10, I think it's 9.
And really, so when you say, and for clarification, when you're saying condominiums, it's not in the sense that I think a lot of people consider condominiums.
These are minimum 1,700 square foot condominiums, yes, sir.
Right,
Just be
so,
simple.
because sometimes people think of, small, these are really, I don't really know how to describe, these are homes
Yes, sir.
that are attached.
That's right. Absolutely, absolutely. I could live in one for sure. They are homes.
They're kind of like what we,
Are there like 4 units per building?
That's what I
looks
was.
like?
Yeah, that's what I feel is best. If you get too many, it doesn't have the right feel. The other part of the reason for having a small connected together to get the vistas through between buildings to the lakes and things, the fountains and all out there. We don't want it to feel like it's a wall that blocks off the amenity, so that you have all these different vistas in there. And don't want it to look like long apartment building.
Mr. Del Hall, if you got these, I'm looking on, this is number 17 here. I think you call them alleys or service drives.
Yes, sir.
Who is responsible for maintaining those once it's developed?
The homeowners association will be responsible to maintain those. It'll be in your homeowner association dues. I've, like I said, I have planned a lot. I've written a lot of associations, and I lived on one for 20 some odd years myself. Actually, more than that. My last house was 20 some odd years. I was on one, and it was just in our quarterly dues. The plan is to resurface those, and when you program it at a certain period of time. But those are built the same as city road standards. So soil cement, asphalt, top coat, they should not break down unless there's a failure underneath. They last for a long, long time. And they don't get nearly the traffic a regular road do.
They are built to the same standard as these are?
We've had some issues throughout other parts of the city where those
I've heard.
have not
I've
been
heard about
maintained
that.
correctly.
Yeah, and you know as well as I do, I'm sure, there's a lot of developers that'll cut if they can and save a little money or whatever. But if they're inspected and done right, even though they're private, it saves him money in the long run, and it saves the residents money in the long run. So I would be adamant that they are. Everyone we do and write and do plans for, they are.
well, there wouldn't be like garbage trucks and large trucks on those
Well,
alleyways, would it?
there could be trash pickup in Germantown, Collierville, trash picked up in those, and they drive down those, use their arm and pick up the trash can, and some of them, they just back out and turn around and go, and some of them, they just keep falling around wherever they go to. But they pick it out. And I also have, excuse me, Mr. Ross, I also have another development that I had done, a fairly large development by FedEx campus in Collierville. We also had the mail delivered in the rear on the service drive. So when you come home, you get your mailbox is right there. You get your mail, and then you're going in your garage. I think one of the key things also is having that 20-foot setback from that house, so you have extra cars that can park back there, 4 vehicles total.
With this
Speaking of-
development, aren't we, since we can't have
Mailboxes.
individual mailboxes
Yeah.
anymore,
You-
we're
so
going to
mailbox,
have to
that's what I'm
have.
saying. That was
Yeah.
So
then.
where's
You-
that gonna be?
The postal will tell us that. They dictate where they have to be.
Do they?
Yes, they do. We have to have their approval.
We do, depending on the phasing, we have a design standard of how they have to look and how many cars you can kind of pick exactly what they want.
Yeah. They've kind of taken a lot away from us, but
There'll be multiple locations.
I guess financially I can understand why they're doing it. But like all of us probably sitting around here, I'd hate to have to get out of the car and get my mail in the rain or something, then go home. But that is what it is, and we can't, none of us here in this room can change that, I know, so. So at some point, we will strategically locate that, and it'll be in some type of small, we may, again, this is kind of like the preliminary plan, the master plan. Things are gonna move around a little to address a mail kiosk or something like that in the common area. Some things are gonna change around a little bit, or be massaged out, you might say, to make it even better. So,
What happens if the YMCA does not come to
then
fruition?
if something happened and it didn't come to reality, then that is just commercial property. Would put office buildings there, or some little commercial something, but it would be for commercial use. It's within that commercial envelope.
Any other? Go ahead, Mr. Dahl.
I was going to say, I personally, I guess I would say I am proud of the team that's put this together, because I think it's such an improvement over what you already have. To me, anytime you do something better, it's worth it. So I would hope that y'all would see some merit in that. But anyway, I'll shut up and sit down if you'd like.
Anybody else on the board have questions for Mr. Dahlhoff before he sits? Okay, thank you, Mr. Dahlhoff.
Sure.
If there are citizens here to speak, and it looks like there's quite a few, we're going to allow 5 minutes per person. Come up, state your name for the city clerk. Whoever wants to go first, raise your hand. Yes, sir.
I have a PowerPoint presentation that Austin's bringing up there.
Thank you for sending that ahead of time.
Okay, great. And yeah. Yes, sir. All right. I will try to do this within the allotted 5 minutes, but if I have a little bit of extra time, I would have something to comment on the questions that have been raised so far. So we commented at both of the Planning Commission meetings, and our major areas of concern are the ones that you've already seen tonight. The primary concern of the neighbors are the use of the existing roads, road condition, traffic, and so forth. And then we listed these other areas of concern as well, and I'm not going to go over them in the same detail that I did at the Planning Commission, but I do want to hit on 4 of these where I think there are some other additional points to be made. So the use of existing roads is problematic, as the builder and Mr. Dalhousie have agreed to. And basically because the existing roads are just not up to current city code, they wouldn't be really compatible with what's going to be built. We've gotten improvement on the traffic study, but the 2007 report minutes from the Alderman meeting showed some startling numbers in terms of traffic that could go up those roads from that subdivision. So Right now, apparently the proposal that has been presented to you folks tonight only shows access through Brody Road. And I've learned, I didn't know this until a few days ago, that this is because of a request from the fire marshal for access to that road. And his written opinion says that the existing code, which is 2012 International Fire Code, and then there's a section, would not require that access. So that's the code that is on your books as legally enforceable today. This request is based on a possible, potential, maybe future adoption of the 2018 International Fire Code, which has changed language, which would require a northern access road. Just as a person who might get a ticket from a police officer someday for a law that's coming, but I don't know about it because it's not a law right now. These things, the idea of applying tomorrow's laws to proposals today is a little bit problematic, and I'm not sure that you want to enter into the practice of applying laws that are not on the books yet. So I don't think it's fair to the developers and builders to impose additional requirements, and I'm not saying that the requirement isn't a good sense one. It's just not legally enforceable today. And so that would be my pitch for using, getting rid of all the northern access roads. Then the next concern that I'd like to talk about, it was lower on my list last time, is rental properties. There's a large, the potential purchase of a large number of units by a single entity is not precluded in these plans or by ordinance at this point in time. And in the 2007 minutes from the board meeting, it was stated that the developer should arrange for the covenants to cover this, but we know that covenants are notoriously difficult for citizens to enforce. It's actually probably, I've never done it. I've read a lot of them trying to figure something out, but I've never done it. Maybe other people have, but it's tough to do anything with covenants. However, the city, through your actions, possibly tonight, can require deed restrictions for restricting occupation to owner-occupied or other reasonable language that would prevent the predatory companies coming in, making an offer for 100 units, and then start renting those out after they're completed. And the thing that's bad about that, as you know, is number one, it drives up the price of rentals. And number two, these remote companies have little interest in maintaining the value of that property. They want the monthly check. It's a cash flow issue for them. So I would just say that we really need to think about that. With regard to environmental impact for this development, there is a chance for a huge negative environmental impact here. We've heard verbally tonight that the builder and the developers all intend to do what they have to do. But I just wanted to remind you that Hurricane Creek is a recognized impaired waterway that feeds into Arcabutla. Therefore, it's already kind of in trouble. And I was amazed that it's a 30-foot drop from the northern to the southern border. That's a lot of slope for a lot of water to run down, for example, which brings erosion and transport of materials that the neighborhood may generate, sewage, yard chemicals, and so forth. So it's a tricky problem. I'm really not qualified to spew out all kinds of requirements for that, but people are able to do that. Just to put it in scale, it's 250 acres, and by the time you pave and put roofs on that, you're going to have a significant amount, and I just estimated about 150 acres of impermeable surfaces. This means that the rainwater that would hit that and normally go into the ground or spread out where it lands is going to be transported somewhere. And if you can imagine the amount of water that hits a 250-acre site, that's a lot of water moving really quickly. And I'm not saying it's impossible or that you should stop it solely based on this, but really it's your responsibility to make sure that this is done right. It's a huge responsibility because this is a huge development. And so right now, to my understanding, Hernando has no stormwater management department. We have no stormwater management plan. And on the website, it says that the city of Hernando is classified as MS4, and that's a very convenient, helpful classification for us as a community. And it's required to develop and fully implement a stormwater management program. So that's where your responsibility, I think, comes in. If that's not done properly, I can't even imagine what the state and the feds might do in terms of punishments and penalties and things like that. So I would just encourage you to think about the implications of this environmental impact and possibly say or do whatever it takes to get it right. Okay, so here's the question that has been bugging me a lot, and I rephrased it to, did the developer start this proposal at the right time? Let me explain what I mean. A PUD development consists of two parts: PUD zoning, and we'll talk about that. And the Alderman approved the zoning change in 2007, and boy, that's tiny. But basically, I'm quoting from the zoning ordinance, and the owner did not meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance, so you guys, the aldermen, have the authority now to make a zoning rescission on that property if you so desire. That is fully in your ballpark right now. However, what that means, that doesn't change the zoning, so therefore this land is still PUD. The zoning has not changed unless y'all do something. The second part of a PUD is an approved preliminary site plan. And in 2007, the Alderman approved a preliminary site plan. However, due to the same inaction by the owner, that site plan has never been renewed. So I'm making the argument that there is no approved site plan for this property. That means a couple of things. Now, I want to be gentle here because I respect the builder and the designers and stuff, but some of the things that have been said are very close to, I guess I would use the word threat, to go back to that design and just start pulling permits. In fact, that's very close to the language that I've heard. If this analysis that I've done is sound, and I've sent this to the city attorney and asked him to look at it, then there's no basis for someone tomorrow going and start pulling permits on this property. There is no approved site plan at this point. Okay, so any new development proposal for this property should have been started as a new preliminary site development plan. And as a layman, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I know it's different language and different intent, and it would have been a different course of action. It must be important because all I've heard is this proposal before you is a modification of an existing site plan, and I don't think that's true. So here's what I think I'm comfortable asking you about. First of all, please remove all the mandatory access. The mandatory, meaning the city has required the developer to put this in, access to the northern neighborhoods. Don't use laws that are not on the books. Number two, because of the environmental, potential environmental impact, detrimental impact, somewhere in the process, a full environmental impact statement needs to be developed. This includes stormwater, treatment of the creek, flora and fauna, and the 75 acres of woods that will be leveled to put these homes there. So You know, this is a big development. When I was first looking at those beautiful illustrations, it's deceptive. It's deceptive because to look at 250 acres on a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper is, your mind just plays tricks with that. But it's a huge piece of land and huge development, and this is your only chance to get it right. Everything else, the state won't intervene until there's damage that has to be remediated. There's a big gap between what's being proposed and what the state and other people will step in and fix. So, request the city attorney to draft some language to include in the deed restrictions for these homes, these individual homes, that would come close to limiting the occupancy to owner-occupied homes. And then finally, your help in holding the developer to the proposed modifications that they presented tonight. There's a lot of people that are going to be looking at that, and I guess it's a chance for this city to play in the big leagues. This is a huge $250 million of housing revenue is what is on the table here. That doesn't include the value of the businesses that'll be put there. And so it's a huge dollar amount, it's a huge amount of land, and I think that a lot of the proposals, changes that the developers have made are very much in line with what my neighbors like to see, but if it's just on paper and then something else happens, that's not very, very good. If I could take a couple of minutes, just to reiterate.
Very, very briefly.
Okay, on a couple of the questions y'all have asked. I think there is no fallback to the 2007 plans. No permits can be drawn tomorrow if you say no tonight. If you look at what you required in 2007, you required residential density under 4 units per acre. Residential means the number of homes on residential property. If you do that calculation properly, which I have it, I could present it to you later, it's up closer to 4.1 units per acre, so they're right on the line for residential density. And the question was how many homes will be built before commercial property is put up, meaning permits are drawn and concrete is poured. It's in the code. There's no question that they'll have to do at least 100 residential units before the first commercial property can be built. It's in the code, and so y'all can enforce that. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate what you're having to decide. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions, but I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Who else would like to speak? Austin, I would like for you to address the stormwater plan very quickly. I know we've been ramping that back up with consultants.
Sure, yes. We do have an active stormwater grading permit, and we do participate in MS4 permit through the county. It's convenient, Greg's here tonight, because it's a joint effort between the cities and the county. We've hired Neil Schaefer to help coordinate our MS4 permit to DEQ. So it's an annual renewal on a 4 or 5 year basis to where we're required by DEQ to constantly update our ordinances, do annual site inspections, keep up with small and large permits. So there are processes there for that, is the short of it.
And to answer one of the other things on the environmental, the board has taken these type of things very seriously and has thought a lot about making sure the infrastructure is proper when it's put in and the environmental issues are taken care of. And to that end, they hired, I think at our last board meeting, they hired a staff field engineer who will be full-time helping us with that as well. So we do understand the environmental issues are crucial, and we all want to make sure it happens. And it's going to be my job to stay on top of our staff and make sure it happens, and we're committed to doing that if this passes. Well, anybody else like to speak? Any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, to briefly talk about environmental concerns, one of the environmental concerns that has been ongoing for years is the existing lagoons on Dogwood Hollow. And those, if you're not familiar with those, there's two two large lagoons there that are fed by water treatment plants by the houses there. None of that area has been connected to city sewer, and this would remediate and deal with all that by the developer get it well. And let me just read that really quickly, because they said it was in the stat. I know everybody's heard a lot, but just really quickly. As part of the first phase that includes any infrastructure construction within Delta Landing, the developer will extend public sewer to the north property line of Delta Landing at Dogwood Hollow Drive via a sewer manhole and pipe stub that ends at the property line. This sewer extension will allow the city of Hernando to provide public sewer connections to the residents north of Delta Landing. The developer is not responsible then, for all of the work that happens off site and that kind of thing. For me as the alderman for that area, that is certainly extremely needed. Every other person on the board is probably tired of hearing me talk about how most of Ward 6 has been somewhat ignored since it's been annexed in, and that there's utilities that need to be connected, there's roads that need to be paved. That's why Dogwood Hollow is getting paved this year, because I keep bugging them about it. Brody Road would need to be paved, and also there need to be shoulder work done, and there would be striping that would need to be done sometime in the next 2 budget years if this is approved. So that's something that we need to put, in the back of our minds. If we're voting to approve this, we need to commit those dollars to not only paving that road, but doing the shoulder work necessary for whatever traffic is going to be considered there. So those are some actions that we need to think about. I know the mayor already mentioned the staff engineer that we've brought on board. He was actually out at Dogwood Hollow with me earlier this week, looking at a lagoon issue because it was stopped up, and we got that addressed. For sure. Is this a perfect plan? Is this Whoville in Christmas and it's perfect and wonderful and all that? I can say it's not. There have been very significant concessions that have been made that the developer has met with us on, for sure as well. It is a very, very large development. It has come under a lot of consideration over several weeks. And it's something where when I got into all this, and when I got into being an alderman and trying to represent people, I was most worried about my children growing up in this community and the schools that they would have here. That's why we moved here, is because we had family here and we wanted our kids to go to good schools. Now we have an $85 million high school that will be one of the most significant educational investments in the history of DeSoto County going in on McInville Road. And like every time a new school is built in DeSoto County, development quickly follows it. And so I'm not surprised that a development like this has been brought in front of us. So a lot to consider for sure. And I think there has been some significant concessions made.
I have a couple questions for.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pittman, I think the gentleman indicated something about some kind of rental deeds. What is your opinion on that?
In our position that we're not able to do that. Agree, obviously, there'll be covenants. Homeowners Association, involved in having one of those, they would have to agree to that. That's been our position in the past.
Does your legal opinion agree with, I think their attorney in this report, that we cannot, I guess, deny this based on the 2-year requirement or whatever?
That's correct. I think you have the authority to revert if you want to, but it's not reverted already just because.
Not automatically reverted.
Correct.
And if we did that, we'd potentially open ourselves up for some liability, you would
I
think?
think so. I think there would certainly be some litigation if you did take that course, but you are able to take that course. I think that's the general consensus of the planning director and myself and the other attorney.
Awesome. I had talked to you earlier about the 25-year storm event. that's something maybe we could look at doing a 50-year event instead of a 25-year event. Mr. Delhall, is that something you're interested to talk about?
We can definitely look into it and work with Austin on that and see, and just kind of see what the differences is and the impact to it.
Well, I just, once we approve it, there ain't no going back.
Well, I'm just saying, I would be happy to work with him on it, and.
Because we have a huge issue with drainage in this area, and
Yeah, I certainly understand that.
that's certainly a
I understand-
valid concern.
And I understand about Hurricane Creek also, and I know, I'll say this about the creek being impaired. We did have, I think it was I believe it was last year, the Corps was out there doing some work on the creek for us, stabilizing it, so I just let you know that, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna add to you, we could size everything appropriately for the detention bond to store 50 years.
We take care of that tonight? All right.
Real quick, back to the HOA and rental stuff. When would we normally see that? Don't we normally see an HOA document the covenants at some point? Where will we see that in the process?
For process-wise, on a project like this, a lot of the requirements are spelled out in the PUD document, but our catch would be at final plat. We can require the covenants to come back before we record a final plat to have the covenants in front of y'all to make sure they match.
Okay.
What other questions does the board have? If there are no questions, is there a motion proffered?
Mayor, I'd like to make a statement.
Go ahead, Alderman Miller.
I'm not stating all in line with Alderman Piper that represents that area, and not to review what has been given to us most recently compared to what was going on in 2007 and also what was going on in 2023. I think there have been significant concessions made in this plan. And I think if there's anything else, that nothing is perfect, but I think what we have now before us is well better than what we had behind us. And I'm agreeing with Alderman Piper. It's going to bring some relief into this area that we had not been able to do, especially in Dogwood Hollow with the sewage problem. So I can, really support the plan as presented tonight with the modification and the change, and because great concession has been made, even with the person that talked on tonight. I think he, in so many words, even agreed that a lot of the concerns what the residents have has been met, and I just want to go on the record with that in support of what Alderman Biker was also saying.
Thank you, Alderman Miller.
I know it's probably hard for everybody to hear, but he just said that everything I said was right, and thank you, Alderman Miller.
Everything, Alderman
It took 2 years, but you finally admitted it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I did want to ask about there was something that was brought to me about bonding McInvale, the bonding of McInvale as this is developed out over a longer period of time. We're currently looking at spending a little over $2 million to pave those 4 lanes. I'm not sure if the school is being bonded on the 2 lanes over there, and then I just don't know what that looks like.
Joe Frank, would you like to speak to that? Okay, as far as you're asking about school bonding.
That and then also for this, like there's going to be significant. I mean, you're talking concrete trucks, you're talking asphalt. Just all of the work that's coming in and out of there. Will McInvale have to be restored to the paved state that we're going to get it to this year once these developments are completed, or what does that look like, I guess?
Okay. Right now, as far as the school goes, we've been in talks with the general contractor and the company that's going to do a lot of hauling on the road, and notified them that they're going to be responsible for the road worse than it is out there now. Condition of the road, we've notified them about bond, of course, their argument is a lot of other people are hauling on the road. It is a major road. And them responsible for everybody else hauling on the road would be something to discuss with them. But yes, once we get the road repaired or up to a standard as we're planning to do, we may need to look at a bond as far as protecting the condition of the new road during this construction. But it is a major road, and other people are hauling on that road every day, and that's why the road is getting the wear and tear you see out there on it. But we can look at a bond at some point.
Is that something you would look at when you talk to the board about bonding the improvements as they move forward later on in the next iteration of this? Or Austin, when does that usually happen if we're going to make that happen?
I would probably suggest it happen with the grading permit. The equipment starts coming in and out.
I have a question about construction access as the phases develop. I'm concerned that they might use Brody Road as for construction traffic. Has that been brought up? Has anybody?
About to ask the same thing, so I'm glad you
Okay,
asked it.
so, is there a way we could designate that as not a construction entrance?
Yes, sir, Mr. Delhoff.
We have talked about that a lot, especially with the neighbors and even amongst ourselves. Two things would like to say with regards to that. One is, as far as the construction traffic, as we get back to the bonding, we're moving all the dirt on site. I know the school's trucking in 300,000 yards or something. I forgot. It's an unbelievable amount of dirt they're having to truck, but we're moving on site, so we will have equipment. But yes, ma'am, we have talked about that. There's a couple of ways that we've handled it on other developments. We post a sign for one thing, no construction traffic. And then if it does, then I have been involved in developments, we actually have fined that company. If it was a cement truck or whatever it was, whoever it might have been, we fine them for doing it. They don't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So we'll put a sign up there that no construction traffic allowed. And we'll put it at both ends of that road.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure that road doesn't get
because
construction.
I agree with it. I agree with you because, it would definitely tear up that road pretty quick with those heavy trucks, cement trucks or something like that, or brick truck or something. So can't kind of stand out there and police it, but you can penalize them. And that's and I have seen developers do that many, many times for the neighbors.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Alderman Miller, go ahead with your motion. Go ahead with your motion.
I make a motion to approve, let me make sure I get the right, which one is that? Motion to approve based on the evidence provided and the testimony. I propose a motion of approving the rezoning requested by Bowers Dale Hall and the rest of the language that's written in the text, along with all attached supporting documents.
There's a motion on the table.
Second.
There's also a second. There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Item 13, we'll give people a moment to clear out, the ones that are leaving. card policy, the approval of city-issued credit card travel policy resolution. Our city clerk is continuously trying to upgrade our processes and make sure we are current with things we're supposed to be doing, so she's put this.
Just as a requirement from the state. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, item 14 is the approval of the MOU, the 23rd Judicial District Attorney's Office and participating law enforcement agencies for forfeiture and seizures to be signed by the Chief of Police.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item 14.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 15 is the approval to hire AERC to write bid specs and then authorize to advertise to go to bids for HVAC systems for the Gale Center. If there's any questions on that, I know some of you have called me and the chief and asked questions. If there are any others, you can ask them now, or we can have a motion.
Can we not just bid it off the quote we had? Do we have to have the specs?
I don't think the quote was enough for somebody to bid on. I really don't. The person that quoted it spent weeks going through the building, coming up with that quote, literally.
How long will it take on all these, to get all this?
Chief, how long did they say it would take to get the engineering done? Was it 3 weeks, maybe?
I talked to Doug this afternoon, and he's going to make
Well, hopefully with this cool snap coming tomorrow, it'll give us a little bit of leadway. It won't be.
I'll make a motion to approve item 15.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 16 is to surplus the totaled animal control vehicle, VIN number 4892, and sell for scrap. We will be using a Ford Explorer a used one from the police department for the remainder of this budget year to replace that totaled vehicle.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 17 is the approval to surplus 2 Dell monitors that don't work in the fire department. Their serial numbers are listed there.
Motion approved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, we are at the contract stage of the skate park addition. We have to accept and let me sign the contract with them so they can get started pretty soon. If y'all could approve item 18, that would help us move forward.
Motion approved.
Second. So motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Item 19. There's some representatives here from Neil Schaefer. This is the authorization to purchase the rights of way and contract to move utilities in accordance with the MDOT permit number listed for the intersection improvements of Highway 51 and West Oak Grove. They did issue the permit last week, MDOT did, so that means they've approved our plans. The next step that I did not want to hold off on, I want to move on quickly, is to purchase the quarter acre of right-of-way that's needed and have the engineers direct the relocation of the utilities. Those items will be paid for out of money we have on hand that's been allocated through our state senator and state representative McClendon and Darnell, and that money is in our bank account, so we can move forward with that as soon as y'all authorize it.
Mayor, do we have any idea if we're going to get any more money this year for that project? Have we been told?
So the question is, are we going to get any more money? We are asking the legislature to allocate another $2.25 million, which would be for construction funds. We will not bid this thing until they have told us they will give us that money. But we do have enough money to move forward with this part. And Alderman Miller, I heard you asking something, if you could go ahead.
The question will, and this just for me only, when will we see a plan?
We have it here in front of us tonight. I will get you one delivered tomorrow.
We do?
What does the plan consist of?
I think he's got some.
What is the plan is for that section? You know, I'm very interested in that.
He wants to know about the roundabout.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to get him to come up and explain it. He's got some handouts he can give us. Yep.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Reed Haygood. I'm a roadway design engineer with Neil Schaefer. Also, Greg Russell, he's the one that performed putting all the plots together.
Can you pull that mic up closer to you?
Yeah, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Can you all hear me? I do have a few printouts of the roundabout. I know not everybody's here, but we can definitely make those available to you. Let me go ahead and pull that out real quick, but it's a single lane roundabout. It'll also have one pedestrian crossing across Highway 51 and one across West Oak Grove Road. So connectivity at Conger Park is consistent with the bike and pedestrian plan, so it will be a 10-foot wide multi-use path that'll help get pedestrians and bicyclists safely across the road. I have 3 on hand with me. Well, 2 on hand.
I'm passing mine down this way.
If y'all would be all right sharing, I can definitely email this version out to everybody.
Could you email me a version?
I'll be prepared.
They just brought these to me at 5:15 today, so.
We can
fresh.
definitely pass these out.
Checkers down here.
He drew it on there, okay.
18-wheelers.
Anyway, single lane roundabout. The point of a roundabout is going to slow everybody down as they're coming into town, which is something very important. As they're coming up from the south through over that hill, I've just personally observed pretty high speeds coming through there. At the point of a roundabout, we force people to slow down through a series of curves, and you've got your curb and gutter through there. 18-wheelers will be able to navigate their way through the roundabout. We have something called a truck apron on the inside of the roundabout, so as they make their turns, they drag their trailer along the back of that. I'm trying to think, we've got all of the plans designed, we've got MDOT permit approved, we've been speaking with Entergy, already initiated their lighting plan, and anyway, there's a little bit of back and forth with Atmos going on, but we don't anticipate any major relocation costs, pretty minor. And all of the relocation costs and the right-of-way should be covered by the money that's already been allocated from last year's appropriations.
And we did have a discussion, and Joe Frank was just kind of brainstorming about what right-of-ways are worth and what amount, and we talked about moving utilities, and it looks like we'll be under $100,000 on all that combined. The utility moving and the right-of-way should keep us under $100,000 on that topic, on that item.
That's correct.
Alderman Miller, I'm sorry you don't have a drawing in front of you. Did that help answer your question?
Ain't no problem. I got my imagination anyway. So.
Okay.
My question, I'm serious. This is a serious question for me. Because I'm familiar with roundabouts, and I'm familiar with the traffic in that area. And so my question is, and this is for anybody on the board or else the engineer, who's going to train the people how to drive in a roundabout?
That's a very valid question. I appreciate you bringing that up, and that's something that...
This is serious. I mean, you can kind of laugh at it and think it's not important, but I sit there on a daily basis and watch what's going on in that at that area. And when you're talking about slowing down the traffic, when that traffic coming from the south, it's coming over a hill. So that roundabout gonna slow it down, or it's gonna run into it. I mean, this serious business.
Thank you for asking that. I would say that there will be advanced warning signs. So for the first person that does approach for the roundabout for the first time, they will be aware of that. One thing that has worked in other municipalities for the first roundabout is campaigns for public engagement, whether that's a meeting, explaining this is how you drive a roundabout if you're not familiar with it, or on social media to have a little one-page flyer that these are the rules of a roundabout if you're not used to it. And the goal is to slow everybody down as you're interacting with other vehicles. And so I will say that in my experience, I've seen more and more roundabouts being implemented in Mississippi. I know there have been talks of some further up along 51. So I do think this is something that will be helpful for the community, and I do think that as people get used to driving them, I think it will be overall good.
And Alderman Miller, just to directly address it, I will pledge to work very closely with you and the engineers to get out any kind of educational pieces we can, down to holding meetings at City Hall to explain to people what a roundabout's about. We can do anything and use some best practices that other cities have used when they've implemented. I know there are videos you can put out there that explain it, but you're right, it's very important that we educate people.
And also, if anyone has been talking with anyone about this, when this came up from the community, when the community heard about the potential of a roundabout in this area, it was totally rejected. And just for the record, the city had no input on whether it be a roundabout or a light. This was totally MDOT decision. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, I talked to Mitch, and Mitch said that one was meant there.
And that's for the record, too, because we are the ones who live in this community, and the people that we represent, those are the ones that's going to be continue asking the questions about this, and had nothing but negative response from a roundabout. And that's what I was to make this matter of record, that this was not the option of the city.
We'll make sure we note that, yeah.
Is it shaving down the hill there? Because you're going to top a hill and then all of a sudden you're going to come into a roundabout. Are they going to flatten it out? Or what's going to happen there?
That is not part of the plan. We did look at the sight distance. So as a vehicle is approaching the hill, making sure that they've got enough distance for eye height and based on our calculations. We believe that it meets for the design speed or the posted speed of 45 miles an hour. So that was not included in this project. With all of this project, with the lighting improvements that will be provided, with advanced warning signs, we do believe that that will give enough heads up as you're approaching and coming down the hill. You will have enough distance to come to a complete stop before you
enter the roundabout.
Which, yeah, correct. If a vehicle were needed to yield to another vehicle that's in the circulatory roadway.
The roundabout sign warning that you mentioned is not like a reduction of speed or anything like that. It's just a yellow sign that says roundabout upcoming, or what exactly is that?
Yes, so to your point, it would be a yellow sign with roundabout ahead. I believe I could look back in the METCD and look at speed advisory plaques ahead of time. One other thing that I don't know if we necessarily talked about, but potentially a speed study to recommend as you're coming from the south to go ahead and knock the speed limit down as you're approaching that. But
well, the reason I asked that is because, I grew up like kind of rural suburban Georgia or whatever, and I was always told the yellow signs were suggestions, but the white signs were the law, right? So when you see a speed limit sign that is a speed reduction, well, you better hit your brakes. But a yellow sign, sometimes people don't really pay as much attention to them. They're just kind of like, oh, yeah, there's something there, whatever. So I don't know, do we have the authority to change what the speed is on 51 south of this
We
intersection?
don't, but they're looking at this very closely, and I think a recommendation from the engineers would be taken very seriously by them with the roundabout coming in. Will y'all make sure y'all recommend that to MDOT?
Absolutely.
And then-
I think it will serve the public.
And I'll call Mitch Turner as well, who's the district engineer, and put in my 2 cents on behalf of the board.
And whether it's in proximity to the roundabout or just like when you enter city limits, period, because you have, more commercial development, you have a lot of other things there that need to be taken into consideration. But with this, and one of the other questions I had on this is, why is it not centered on the current intersection?
Yeah, another great question. So in the northwest corner, there's a bunch of utilities. You've got a high-pressure gas main, and you've got, I believe, the fiber optic is by C-Spire, and then you've also got a bunch of water utilities right up in that northwest corner. So shifting that out of the way is going to help as far as constructability goes. And then we also, trying to think of any other, just having some of we will be purchasing right away in the northeast quadrant, and it's undeveloped, it's already green space. So it kind of comes down to constructability, not getting to having to move all those
Moving that
utilities.
gas main was going to be a big issue.
Well, the reason I ask about that is because with the way it's kind of shifting to, and I know everybody can't see this, we don't have a PowerPoint. With the way that shifts kind of southeast, you're most likely going to be taking out, several trees in the right of way that lead into like Conger Park area. They'll have to be taken out, clearly. And I think that would be another thing additionally that the community would not appreciate. I think we can all agree on that. It's good to have that. It's good to have that buffer for where the traffic's going, for noise, for a bunch of different reasons. And that's just a general statement. That's not necessarily a question. I would like to. In my personal opinion, because we are just now seeing this, I don't know what the repercussions are for tabling it for 2 weeks, but I would like to potentially consider that so that we can gain more feedback from this and consider all the other impacts that this is going to give for this intersection.
I would say that if we change it, then the MD or the MDOT permit is no longer, they'll withdraw it and it'll go through this long 6-month process again.
So we can't say we'd rather have a light there because you aren't going to shave down the hill or any of that other stuff. And we feel like it's going to, I can just see somebody topping that hill and running into the back of somebody because they've come up on a roundabout and they freaked out and they slammed on their brakes.
I think we've
Do y'all
been-
see that too?
I think we've been
y'all-
through
can
the
y'all
argument
envision
with
that?
them about a red light, haven't we?
I can.
Well, I haven't argued because I think the roundabout's the proper thing. I've done tons of research on it. So I haven't argued that a red light goes there. Red lights will just back up traffic like a stop sign does, and, these keep traffic moving. And all the data you look at says the majority of people don't like them before they're there, and after about a year and a half, the majority of the people do like them.
I'm not against a roundabout. I'm just worried about that location with the hill. When you're going north on 51, you're going to top that hill and come down, and people that aren't expecting it, even because they're not going to pay attention to the signs, just, people don't notice everything. That's my only concern, but I'm not opposed to roundabouts by no means. I think they do very well in a lot of locations as far as keeping the traffic flowing. And people get used to it, but I just worry about that hill.
And MDOT themselves I think they've hired Neil Schaefer to design one at Green Tea in 51. It's what MDOT's going to, roundabouts.
Well, and this is my last comment on this, and I'm going to be through with it. And based on even what the mayor said, that this board had no input in this at all. And even the mayor said that he didn't say anything against it because he's for roundabout. But I think as a board, and we represent the citizens also, just like the mayor do, and we hear it from the people, and this is totally what they didn't want. But every time I asked a question, I was only told that since it was MDOT, there's nothing we can do about it. And I just want to make this part of the record. I still totally disagree with what MDOT decision on this project. And Alderman Piper, tabling ain't gonna do no good. It's already done. It's a done deal. And I'm finished with that on the roundabout.
I have a couple of questions. How many lanes is this roundabout going to be, 1 or 2?
It will just be one lane, which is consistent with lane assignments north and south.
Okay, good. Because I do think the 2-lane ones are even more confusing than the 1-lane ones.
I definitely agree. I second that.
When construction comes about, is this intersection going to be shut down for a period of time?
So with the phasing of the intersection, a majority of the intersection they'll be building the east side at one time, and when they do that, it will be able to be built while maintaining traffic. There is a section on the west leg, which would be the second phase of construction, that would require a temporary closure of West Oak Grove from 51 to, I don't remember the name of the road that runs just.
It would go up Magnolia Street and around the corner down Park Street past my house.
Oh, East Oak Grove.
Yeah. You would enter back down south of where the old Serpro was, down there by Bramlett's Horse Arena.
Okay.
And then come up Magnolia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we discussed this a little earlier, and we want to limit that in the contract that we'll put out to bids to 7 days at the most, that it could be rerouted that way.
So phase 2, there would be one section of West Oak Grove from like 51 to the neighboring residential street. I can't recall it off the top of my head. Because of the grade changes that would need to go on through there, we are recommending that that get built by itself. And so that would be a temporary detour. And then for 7 days, with building these roundabouts and you have a giant splitter island in the middle, all it takes is for a concrete crew to be out there and then one big truck comes through and then they've just torn up all the stuff that they've worked on. So we are recommending, as Mayor Johnson said, a 7-day full closure that would be for the contractor to put in all the splitter islands, which would be a bunch of demolition of existing pavement and then placing concrete, curb and gutter, and then enforcing a hefty fine of at least $1,000 a day for every day that they don't do that, because we understand that's going to not be too popular. But it is something that in the roundabout construction, we are realizing is needed from time to time.
Okay, and we might can coordinate that around school schedule?
That's what I've been working on. That's why I want to
Okay.
move so quickly. If we can keep rolling, and then if Senator McClendon and Representative Darnell get us the money when the session ends April 1st, we could be going out for bids pretty quickly, and maybe get it built during the summer.
Senator McClendon texted me, he's got a commitment for $2.2 million for that.
That's great.
3.2?
What's gonna go in the middle?
So you've got your outside curb and gutter, and then you've got a truck apron, which will be concrete. Down the inside, we've just got green space. We will be running a sleeve for irrigation, an empty sleeve, so should
We've
the
got
city...
water over on the Concord Park side, so we can run water under there to irrigate the center.
Okay, that's good.
There's guidance with what sort of vegetation you do want to put in the center. Just if you get it too tall, you could affect your sight distance of what's going on the other side of the roundabout. But anyway, that is part of what has been approved by MDOT's permit is sleeve for irrigation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item 19.
Second. There's a motion and a second for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
Nay.
There are 2 nays. Alderman Piper and Alderman Miller. The motion passes. Item 20 is an approval of the utility adjustments.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the utility adjustment docket.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And
Adjourn.
Second. Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. This meeting is adjourned.